welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Quest, with me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by Spirit. I am very excited to share my gift with you and empower you to embrace your gift. So if you define yourself as a spiritual human being, then you've come to the right place. So prepare yourself now for an amazing journey where your soul will lead the way. Welcome to a new episode of the Spiritual Quest podcast. I want to start this episode by sharing a channel message from my spirit guide, Sarius. You are all channels of love. Your purpose embodies this love, and to find your purpose and connect with the love, you must first manifest it within yourself, self-love. Only then can your life purpose shine and manifest with strength and power. Your choices become easier, your freedom of choice increases, and your heart becomes joyful. Today's guest is a pure channel of love. Through her 25 years of channeling the divine feminine, Sheila Applegate has developed an intimate relationship with the divine. And together they forged a path for her to access all levels of consciousness while navigating her daily life with joy. As a clinical therapist, motivational presenter, author, and teacher, Sheila's passion is to provide a forum for people to process emotions and integrate spiritual understanding into their daily lives. Her first book, A Chanted One, The Portal to Love, is a work of love that weaves together messages from the divine feminine and highlights her personal experiences in embracing the full spectrum of human emotion. Sheila encourages people to embrace their passions as service on earth by living within the spirit of a chanted oneness. It's with pure joy in my heart I welcome Sheila Applegate to the Spiritual Quest podcast.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be here, and what an incredible message you began with. That was beautiful.
Thank you. It was all gifted from my spiritual team. And I'm so excited to learn more about you, Sheila, and your story and how you work with the divine. Would you please just enlighten us a little bit about who you are and your gifts, if you wish?
Sure. So you kind of told a lot about it, but my biggest passion has always been to help people to connect with the divine. And I think if I go back even into childhood in my own way, that was always my passion. So I've moved through life as I evolve and grow and learn more and connect more to the divine. My next instinct is, how do I share this with others so they can do the same thing? And I've taken a windy path. It all makes sense to me because I'm following spirit, but I've had a lot of great adventures along the way.
So, when you're speaking about childhood, so how did you figure out that you had that connection? Was it something you just had and you lived it? Or did you discover later on that you were different? Or everyone has their own story of how you kind of reconnected with soul. So, what is your story?
Yeah. I often go back to one of my first recollections of, oh, I'm different. Although I think I remember even when I was younger, my aunt saying that there was something, people saying there's something about you, that was just different. And one of those things was not always positive. I was more emotional than a lot of people, so my temper tantrums were bigger and so was my love. But when I was, I don't know exactly how old, but I was sharing a room with my sister. And I've said this other times before, but to me, it was just a natural process to sort of feel my body and my soul just kind of rise up and float around the room. And I mentioned it to my sister, and she's like, No, that's not normal. So little things like that would happen. And then as I moved on in school, I would know that if I had an essay to write, a lot of times I would go to sleep and then wake up in the middle of the night and just have the essay and write it out. And so that just I thought that was just sort of my writing process, but now I can see the time that I realized that there was something even more weird about it was one time in high school. We had a writing assignment, and it was just to write an essay, a creative essay about a 10-foot pole. And I do think it was around Easter in this, in the year. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote my essay using the pole as a cross. I wrote from Magdalene's perspective, the death of Jesus. And I thought, oh, this is a cool essay. But then when I read it in class and everyone was just silent, I'm like, oh, okay, something's going on.
Wow, that's powerful. So, in your sleep, so how did you understand that this was going on in your sleep? I know you woke up in in the middle of the night and wrote, but when were you acknowledging that things were going on with you, that you were connecting during your sleep?
Honestly, until that moment, I did it often, but I just thought that was my creative flow. I mean, I think creativity and writing is most often channeled,
Yes.
and we put it in a separate category even when, like, oh, that's a beautiful poet. We know it's coming from something, but we don't necessarily add the spiritual piece to it. So, I think it was the silence in that room after I read the essay that really woke me up to,
I
like,
have a
something's different.
similar story actually I would like to share with you.
Yeah.
I remember in high school myself, and the teacher asked, "So what are you doing after high school?" And I've always been a visionary, I would say, or I would call it. I guess it would also be clairvoyant, but I've
Mhm.
seen my life unfold, specific images as I was growing up. And one of those clearest moments were that I was going to go to Walt Disney World and work as a Norwegian ambassador. And in that time, that wasn't, something people really did because it was special. It was traveling a far away, and it was in a different culture and it was just, and I knew this. It wasn't like I want this. I've seen this.
Right.
I know this. It was a knowingness. And when I, raised my hand and said, well, I'm going to Walt Disney World and doing this, with this guy in front of me would turn around and go, what? How do you think you're going to make that happen? And I was like, I didn't know what to say. And so I asked my friend, and, don't you see images of what's going to happen? And she goes, looked at me weird and go, no. And that's when I figured out, okay, not
Like,
everyone has this. And so that's when I kind of woke up to my gift. But then
right.
again, you want to fit in, or at least I wanted to. So I started to choose not to speak about it, not be so open about it, instead of allowing that creative flow. So how was it for you as you acknowledge more and more of your gift? Did you embrace it right away, or how did it unfold for you?
I think in the same way it was so natural for you, I noticed it was different. I guess I did. They did go through a period of time of sort of wanting to numb myself down a little bit, emotionally, just kind of fit in probably. Um, But I always had that strong voice. Like, if I saw truth and I had to say truth, it didn't matter if I thought it was a good idea or not. Like, I had to say it no matter what the problem, how that was going to affect me. It didn't matter if the person was was above me, like I was subordinate to them or whatever. I couldn't not speak my truth. And so I wasn't like going around. I was fascinated still about spirituality. I took comparative religion class. I was studying the social work, but I took comparative religion classes. I went to different, things on campus. It exposed me to different religions or spiritual aspects, and I explored. things on that level always, or like right through, even though I was just going to be a clinical therapist. And even that, I was studying to be a play therapist. So there's still that imaginative, like I wasn't wanting to necessarily just think our way out of it, but how do we use the energies to bring us forward?
So you were all already on that energy part of it, as I understand.
Yeah.
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 So that's pretty, thinking back, not everyone thought of that, right? It was very much what you do is who you are, more or less, right? So being that in contact with your emotions and choosing that route, um, did it feel like home to you, or how did you carve out that path? Did it just unfold, or was it a conscious decision?
Um, the path to, like, to this point forward, like, when I
Yes.
began social
Yeah.
work and
Like
stuff,
the
I
whole.
say okay, so as far as going to school and college, I say I just sort of I remember being in the guidance counselor office, and he was asking, what I wanted to go to college for, and I knew I was really good at helping people, talking to people, seeing different perspectives than that they saw. And I didn't like school at that point. So I was like, instead of a psychiatrist, I'll try this social work thing. But then I loved it. So, there was that. And I honestly just thought I was going to go be a social worker. I wanted to be a mom too.
Mm.
Like that was my biggest priority. And it remained a big priority. I was able to mold my career around that. But I didn't have a passion or a drive to change the world at that point. I just wanted to be a mom. But
Well, you
then,
talk about being a mom. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but when
no,
you're
that's
talking
right.
about the wanting to become a mom, what specifically was it about that drew you to that you were so certain that you wanted to be a mother?
I don't That's a really good question now. I love when we get talking like this because it's different parts of my life that I didn't think about. I mean, for one thing, I'm 54 right now. So that was in the 80s, so it wasn't that uncommon. We were moving out of, well, this is all you do, but it was still more of a path that people thought of. But I always loved children. Most of my jobs going through school and stuff, the part time jobs were in daycares. My mom was a daycare teacher. My dad was a clown in the circus. I mean, he also had another job, but he was a shrine clown, and that's like a pretty big circus around here. So that playfulness and the love of children had always been there. If I think back on that now, and know who my children are, who are now grown, but their souls, um I'm sure, like, that to me, raising them is the most important thing that I've done. Bringing up two incredible human beings that will go far beyond me, and giving them this space of growing up without shutting down their spirituality and being able to integrate it into life. And one who is very much an activist now and really working with people, and the other is a biochemist, but they still, even, and I love that Justin with science still has this as their base. So I still believe that that was one of the most important jobs I had, or the most important job.
I so agree with you. And to be honest, I didn't actually want children. It wasn't until I guess I was around, when was that? Around 23, that I really started to get visions of my children. Like I've seen, like I told you, I saw different parts playing out. And I didn't even, I didn't have a boyfriend and nothing. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to explore. And then I saw these two beautiful girls that would be my daughters. And it was so clear. And I knew, again, a knowingness, it would happen when I was 30. And I remember I had this conversation with my mother when I was like 27 or 28. And I go, oh, I think those visions are long gone. I can't trust them. I mean, that's not going to happen. You have to meet a man, then you have to live with a man, and then you have to, date and all that. And, when it first happened, and then again, listening to the guidance of spirit, like I told
Right.
I always do. And the intuition that I had was really strong. And I remember The Bachelor came on. You know, The Bachelor, the show, it's the American show, but we were going to have the first season of The Bachelor in Norway. And I just heard this, you have to go on The Bachelor. And I go,
Oh
what?
my gosh.
What? And so I did. And of course,
Okay.
like every time Spirit tells me something, something happens and it's unfolding. And
Right.
so I ended up being on The Bachelor. And it was, I think I lasted like 2 episodes or something. That was not for me. But the thing is, my now husband saw me on TV.
Oh
so,
my gosh, I
so
love
it
that.
unfolded. And so when
Right.
everything happened, I was like, I need to be proactive to find this man if I'm going to have these children when I'm 30. So I go on The Bachelor, and here comes my husband. And at the age of 30, I get my first girl. And
Oh,
that's when
wow.
I really knew that being a mother, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It's really needed. It was a good lesson for me to learn to embrace my femininity. I've been very
Yeah.
masculine in my energy, also because of my upbringing, but I do have a very strong masculine energy. And so when I started to explore that, and I saw that I needed kind of that um, nurturing energy that comes with being a mother,
Right.
even though it's not your
Right.
biological babies, you're still that nurturing, taking care of, So I really got to play out that. I just wanted to share that with you because I know now, looking back, like we're doing, that was such
Right.
an amazing experience. And yeah, and just trusting
Wow.
whatever unfolds. So
Yeah,
now
wow.
your children are, may I ask how old they are? Would you share that?
Yeah, 27. Well, almost. 26 and 24.
So now you're watching their, unfolding of their lives. So what perceptions do you bring into as a mother when you try to, do you guide your children somehow? I mean, you're a mother, so I guess you will be guiding them somehow, but
As in their adulthood.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they still come to me and talk about they're both on the West Coast, and I'm in New York of the United States. So, um, Sarah is in Los Angeles and Justin is in Seattle. So, fortunately, we have very good telepathy, and now there's a lot of technology, and um, so they're both very unique. And they're Sarah is an old soul that I knew forever and came in pretty much knowing who she was, and then Justin is what a lot of people call star children, a
Mm.
pure drop of oneness. Experiencing humanness for the first time. So it's just a joy to be with them and um,
So one final question regarding your children. I just love, the dynamic and the energy of, soul families and families. So I wonder, what is the greatest lesson that you as a human being and soul has learned from your children? What's your biggest takeaway at this moment in your life?
right. Um, I think to be grounded in the earth, if that makes sense, because I feel like I've always been up here coming down versus sometimes people experience they're very human and they're trying to reach spirituality. For me, it's been the opposite. And they help me to be here on earth and to embrace the joy of it. And then also to be my authentic self and to be true in every moment. Because I remember as a child, even as simple as like my mom saying everything was okay when I could tell she was stressed, but just trying to comfort me, that created such a uh, disconnect for me in my own intuition, right? So by knowing I didn't want to do that for my children, it's kept me honest to myself, like always be true, always express, okay, maybe, I'm really upset right now. There's stuff going on. It's grown up stuff, but I know it will be okay. But right now I'm feeling this and finding that balance of letting myself experience life while also knowing that everything is going to be okay and standing in that space to hold that for my children even when I was navigating emotions.
I just love that. And I just experienced that as well. If you give your children that gift of allowing them to actually be themselves and to help you as an adult, I learned so
Right.
much from my children and being honest um, about how you feel. And of course, there's things that you don't share, but mostly life happens and we have emotions, and showing that it's okay. Not only that, saying I'm sorry, I think has been a great deal or very important to me, because I didn't learn that from my parents. They never said they were sorry if they were unfair. And so for me, it's been really so important that I apologize and I take ownership if anything, if I've crossed any borders or anything that I can see they're upset, that we can have
Right.
that discussion and talk about it. And especially also since I have my youngest is very sensitive. She's even more than I can remember that I was. And I remember she was only like, she just started speaking and she would say, "Oh, daddy, you're purple on," she would point, and she would point at his aura and say, "You're purple and you're blue, and grandpa, you're green there and you're yellow there." And I just, oh wow, here we go. And then he was, "Oh, there's a man and a woman in my bedroom." And he was like, "Okay, so we'll have to deal with this." And it was such a, I felt it was such a blessing. And I want to share one more thing before we move on from children. But I was holding my youngest daughter when we came home from the hospital, and there was this intense energy flow between us that it was, I can't even put it into words. It was very, very strong. And I felt like she was me and I was her. And it was just, I know you. I know you're so deep in my soul that it hurts already there, right? So I told my husband, I know her. And I remember his answer, because he doesn't have this, like you said,
Right.
we learning to ground ourselves because we're up there, right? And so looking at her and saying this, and he goes, "Well, do you love her more than my other daughter?" And I go, "That's not what I'm saying. There's
Right.
something really deep here, a connection I can't describe." Until I did my life between lives hypnotherapy training through the Michael Newton Institute, and I got certified, and I was had to be brought up to spirit, and I was meeting my soul family. And guess who met me and was my soulmate? That was my daughter. And she was, when I took that, I think she was 4 or 5 years old when I took that certification. And she said in spirit to me, "Mom, I'm here. I'm in your life as your daughter because we lived so many different lifetimes together, played so different parts, that now I want to be your daughter. And I'm going to teach you unconditional love. That's what we're going to, work on." And so coming home from that training, this is amazing stuff. Um, my husband picked me up at the airport, and we were talking about what had happened. He was like, "Oh, it sounds wonderful." And I told him the story, and he goes, "Yeah, right." And then we were sitting on the couch when we came home, and we were watching Dancing with the Stars. And I looked at my little girl and I said, "You're my little angel," because I was remembering this, right? And she looked up at me and she goes, "Mommy, I'm here to teach you about unconditional love." My husband almost fell off the couch. He goes, "What?" And
Oh,
I
I
was
love
like so excited because that was what I needed. That was a gift to me, a remembrance that
right.
everything that I've experienced, everything that, was gifted me and that I've experienced became a reality in that moment she said it to me. I remembered everything. And so that was a very um, clear decision on my part that I need to be listening more, tuning in more. Um, and she's watching. I have to really work on myself. It was kind of reminding myself of, why are you here? You're here to learn about unconditional love. You need to calm down, chill a little bit. you know. So I just thought that was an amazing experience, and I just
That's
wanted to share that with
beautiful.
you.
Yeah.
My next question, you said that you're good at telepathy, right? Would you share a little bit how that works?
Oh, yes, I guess. Um, well, with Justin, they came in so with there it having a star child is just different. The soul's just different. But one example, and I guess part of it's just always staying open to the idea, right? And acknowledging when you're in tune or you've talked on the higher energies, and you know things. But I remember one time when Justin was young, just old enough to leave and go to the other section of a store, a big store, but no phones or anything. And I got the things I needed, and I was standing at I think the last thing was to pick up a card to send to someone. And I just thought, okay, and then I need Justin to come back because I'll be done, or I need to know where Justin is, or, I need to connect with Justin next. I think I sent out the idea like we have to connect back. Within minutes, Justin was standing there and they said, I was in the electronics and I saw a picture of you by the greeting cards. I don't think they said greeting cards, but the cards. So I came right over. And so just I think it's really about acknowledging those times, sharing out loud when we do, because we do it naturally, right? And so just sharing out loud when we have those experiences so that we can anchor them in. Um, and because we are human, right? So now Justin being in Seattle doesn't, because we're so telepathic, we and always connected there, and because Justin's so busy, we don't talk on the phone all the time, but the text will sometimes just be one or two comments or a picture that just sort of reminds us that we're in conversation. Or then when we get on the phone afterwards, I'll say, this is what I think you were doing over the last week or two. Is that true? And then they'll be like, yeah, that's true. So for the earth selves, we need that confirmation, but just,
I think that's a very good, I've experienced that myself actually when um, got this knowingness that I needed to call home or that somebody was thinking of me, and you just pick up the phone and you call and they were like, I was just thinking of you. Yeah, I need to speak to you about something or whatever was going on. So I think that's a very natural thing as well.
yeah,
But
I do
yeah.
too.
And so what about intuition? I would love to hear your perspective on intuition. So how do we use our intuition for the highest good?
Hmm. Well, first of all, we all have intuition. Our society isn't really supportive of that because we're trained, from such an early age through the school systems and just try to fit in like a cog in the capitalist society. But if we remember that is our natural state and pay attention to it, because I am a play therapist and I think imagination is our gateway to gnosis or truth. um, I say to play with that, follow it. Like I think spirit guides or our intuition, the energies that move through us are always wanting to teach us and to play and to help us connect. So, hide and seek is a really good one, and following up with the little things. Do you get that? Everybody's had that time when they thought they should bring an umbrella, but it didn't make sense or they didn't feel like going back and then it rained. And we noticed that, but how many other times have something like that happened that we don't know affected or changed things, because it's not about raining or not raining? And or if we go back and get the umbrella and then it doesn't rain, do we say, oh, I didn't think about it right, that wasn't my intuition? Or do we just leave, maybe we forget it in the car and 6 months later it rains and, oh, the umbrella's right there, So it's that kind of just letting yourself play in that energy and to follow through with things even when they don't make sense. I
Oh,
have
that's
one.
a hard one.
That's the hard one, right? But, I mean, I think if you're really starting out just trying to trust your intuition, I always say, people say, "How do I know if it's my intuition or my fear or whatever?" And intuition is always in love. It might be about something that we would typically be frightened of, but the message doesn't come in fear. it just comes in a knowing, right? It's either neutral or it's filled with love. Our brain might get into fear after, but like if we're, get ourselves on a, all worked up because we're home alone and, maybe somebody's going to break into the house. And so we start thinking about that and how, that's not intuition. That comes from a thought. It comes from fear. I mean, maybe some night it is intuition and then you're like, oh, I better do something, but there would be a difference. So, and then just playing like, I think that spirit guides or the energy that is our intuition loves to help us learn under from little things because it's not as much pressure. So when you're trying to find a parking spot, put the intention out for the intuition and then pay attention. Are you getting flashes of a parking lot itself that you know about? And so you go over there. Or are you seeing a road that you know? And so you turn and go that way. Or do you get just the thought, oh, turn right, turn left, and then it or go around the block, So, pay attention on the little things, how your intuition is communicating with you so that when you want to tune into it for the bigger things or when it wants to communicate with you on bigger things, you're already established that language.
So I understand that you've had a strong intuition your whole life. I mean, but what about people who do not feel like you said everyone has intuition, but we're raised differently, and we might have had limiting beliefs or adopted limiting beliefs, so we're pretty much stuck in patterns. So how do we start opening up to your intuition if you're feeling that I don't have an intuition, I'm blocked?
Hmm. Um, Well, I guess I would start with upgrading that limiting belief. You know, like, really think about because like, I work with people on that as kind of a foundation because we can't get any further until we let go of our beliefs. So, what if that is somebody's belief, where did that come from? Like, we come in pure and then we get programmed by society, by school, by parents, it's television, media, so if you have that limiting belief, and it's limiting if it's not helping you live the life that you want to live, that's what's limiting, right? So if you have that limiting belief that your intuition, you don't have intuition or it doesn't work, if you can take time to try to follow back into your childhood to and then just sort of explore. It might be as far back into your childhood, but where did that belief come from? Who told you that? Does that and then look at, does this belief help me? Even if you aren't looking, look at like, where did it come from? Even if you can't find out where it comes from, is this a helpful belief for me? Is it getting me where I want to go? And if it's not, what's the next step to upgrade that? Maybe just add a, sometimes my intuition doesn't work, like, or maybe you jump all the way to, I can trust my intuition, and then you could even write evidence of the times where you could. So changing that belief is the first thing, and then my next step is always imagination. Play, use it on the things that don't frighten you, they're going to change your whole life. Play with it, let it be imaginative, like, okay, what if this happens, and like, take your intuition with you, like an imaginary friend, just have it around and pretend you have your imaginary friend like you did from childhood. Anything that gets you out of that logical straight line thinking will help let this in, and then the magic takes over.
I don't know how it is in the States actually at school, but what do you think about, our children are so, at least how I experienced that here. They're so much more enlightened than I was when I was growing up. Yeah, I did have, my spirit guides around. I was sensitive to everything and I had my visions, but still, when they communicate today, even though when they really communicate, I'm not saying through iPhones or devices, but I see their I see their souls so much clearer, if you know what I mean. And we're having so much trouble with, um, how would you say that? Depression or low self-esteem, um, for children and young
Mhm.
adults in Norway. And I'm thinking it must be the same also in the States. I mean, we see how everything is moving, but what would you say is the best way for us to help these children at this time, knowing what we know and knowing the school system where you are? What can we do as parents for these
Mhm.
children?
Um, and my because my kids are older, that I was a parent at least a decade ago, for that of kids in school, but I always just try to tell them, I mean, give it to them at home, right? Like this is the truth, and spend as much time in imagination, um, creativity, communicating about it. The souls are more the souls that are coming in on a collective level, not just a few, um, are more evolved than us. Like we're going through cycles, and this, because if we come back or we evolve, as however people view it, whether it's souls that have left and come back, or if it's oneness becoming more in evolved and intelligent, the souls coming in today, they are made for the new world. And I mean, I guess that's always been, and that's why you and I were like a few in there going like, what is this world like? This is what they're prepared for the future. They come in and they're here to live in the future world, but it's not here yet. So keeping them awake and alive, giving them outlets. I mean, they can learn anything now. They don't need to be in school the way they are, because they can follow and learn whatever they need to through the internet or whatever. It's all available. So I'm not saying don't take them to school. I'm saying it's outdated, and it. But what could they learn there? They can learn social skills. They can learn how to stand in their truth when somebody is telling them something different. And they can learn how to stand up to authority figures in a way that's healthy. And of course, they'll learn some knowledge, but a lot of it is actually not even truth when it comes to history. And, at least here in the
Yes,
States, what
yes,
we're
you're
teaching
right.
is really more propaganda, in a lot of situations. Not that the teachers aren't trying, but that, it's just so
I liked your perspective on,
extracurricular
yeah,
activity.
what they should learn in school, like you said, is standing up for themselves, being authentic, having that social skills, because yeah, they don't get that the way we did. I remember I was out playing with people and
Right,
having fun and having role play as part of
right.
every day. I don't see them doing that. I mean, I see them on the devices. It's not the,
Right. And
so
my
yeah.
kids grew up when the devices were just starting, so, they were both in like, they went to theater camp, and they weren't going to be actors, but for that, and then cosplay came in, and, um but not every kid is like that, so, you want to follow the child as they are and what their interests are, but maybe just infuse uh, that balance of how do you keep alive the wonder of life? I mean, that's the big key, helping them keep that alive.
So when you talk with your clients, adults coming to you, sometimes we had to work on our childhood, right, to release and move forward. But how do you help people manifest or start creating or co-creating with the universe? Can you share a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep mentioning that I'm a play therapist, but I really am not. I left the therapy industry years ago to just do this, but I bring it all into the process. So, whether it's going back into childhood and exploring that, or if it's exploring now, the wonder, opening back up to that creativity and wonder is the core, and manifesting that life they desire and that connection. To me, the core of what I do is a meditation technique that I call conscious meditation, because it's guided meditation similar to what I learned in the 90s when I was studying. And then I started teaching guided meditations, but along the way, I realized that I had evolved into my own technique. And it, so when I'm working with a client one on one, I'm leading them through a meditation, but it's interactive. So there's an element of hypnotherapy in there. And also, it's never any meditation I ever do is not pre planned. I see it as I share it with, whether it's a group or an individual or on the internet. But I see it and then it unfolds. So it's always infused with the divine
Mhm.
moving through, and that I think is one way to open up. But when I'm working with clients, the primary program, which is Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure, is to help people do exactly what you just said. I found that there's a lot of people that were either in meditation along the way, because I've now kind of watched a process of how meditation has evolved over the past couple decades in our society. Um, and things like transcendental meditation, where people are just going in and being silent and experiencing that bliss of oneness. I mean, I think that's what it is. They go into a white silence. That's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't always, it does help because energetically it will change you. It will shift you and then you will catch up to that. But it doesn't necessarily help you navigate life in the moment, right? It doesn't give you the conscious tools. And I haven't studied it, so I can't. I mean, I'm saying this out of my perspective, but it's more of a, now you've been in divine, so you're infused with it, and now you'll find your way.
Mhm.
But I was like, what's in between being human and that? That's the area that we need to pay attention to. We need to like stretch that out and identify different frequencies that we can utilize and use and access at will as we go through our day. And so that's what I did. And I created I focus on four different frequencies that people navigate, get to know their self in those frequencies, as well as other people, and then integrate that through the process of the conscious meditation. We Part of why I have people talk is that helps the brain to connect between meditation and being in the wake state interacting. And so it's more accessible. And then there's other aspects and techniques that I add to it so that when you are in the situation in your daily life, you don't, you're with a colleague and, you start to have discord and a fight's coming up, and maybe you're like, either you say the wrong thing or you go, okay, let me just, walk away. You go meditate, you get yourself better, then you come back and start over. Instead, it's like you get in that, you click your attention up to those higher frequencies and find the one that you need right now, and then automatically just respond from that state.
I
That's
love
what I.
that. Automatically respond from that state. I work very similar to you with my groups, so
Oh,
it's
nice.
fascinating to hear.
Yeah.
I also use four different frequencies when we move through that, and so knowing those frequencies and being able to adjust it, I usually say it's like a radio channel, and you know instantly where the people are tuned in, and to get them on your page, you need to tune that to communicate. You need to be sure that you can tune down and tune up. So you want to lift them up. And so knowing this and knowing and understanding your own vibration and frequency within the range that you have, it's really, really powerful. And doing that through meditation, like you said, and also I do like when you explained how you do it, I was like, yep, I do that too.
Oh, I love
And it's just
that.
the loving guidance, and I have to be in, be present, and I feel the energies, and depends on what's coming and what the collective needs at that moment to be able to shift and lift, and allowing that divine guidance to take place. It's really special, and it's a very sacred thing to allow to happen. And I know that that's when powerful things happen. It's really
Yeah.
magical. I love the way Zarius tells me sometimes, my spirit guide, he says, it it's the unity between souls where magic resides. And I get what he's saying when he tells me this, because when we open, when we in that soul perspective, when we living from the soul, we're in that high vibration, and we're allowing the guidance of spirit, the spirit in us to connect. We feel that oneness, we feel that unconditional love, and within that, wow, that's magical, right? And we're so powerful. And if we go in and do that together and sending healing and love and light to this planet as we move out of our meditation, sometimes I said, okay, it's time to give of our soul's resources. Now that we have that vibration, let's just send that pure love out into the world, and where we feel it's necessary for the highest good, let's just do it. And it's just a beautiful give and take, that energy, and it fills you up. I'm sorry, I'm getting drawn into what you're saying. I'm just, yes, I love it. I love it. I love it.
No, I'm excited to hear you and to watch you as you're talking, because I can see that energy in you. And it is really exciting because I'm sure you kind of feel alone. Like it's not the common thing that people are teaching. It's um, not a lot of people understand it. So I think even the fact that we connected from around the world and did this interview not exactly knowing all these things about each other, but that shows that frequency resonance, right? And when you're in a frequency resonance like you're talking about, the universe just brings you together, and so there is no time and space or distance. And it's exciting to me to hear you in different words saying the same thing, because our world is ready and everyone's going to hear it in a little bit different way. But then we can look at each other and going, oh my gosh, we're not alone. Like there's other people doing this. And
Yes,
that's
and I
really
think it's
exciting.
such an important thing in this era that we're in, that we come together, that we recognize each other. There's so many of us who's, spent 20, 25 years, 30 years doing this full time now. And it's not been an easy ride. I'm speaking for myself. It's not always
Right.
been easy. It's been kind of lonely, especially in the beginning, and breaking, the barriers of,
Hmm.
the society and standing up for yourself. But it's so worth it when you connect with that energy that we just spoke of, the divine energy, and you feel so loved, and you're not lonely anymore. And I think that that's what kept me going all these years, knowing that there's more people out there. I just hadn't met them yet. And I
Right.
met people, of course, came to me, and I was able to develop my gift as I was a channeling for them, or I was coaching them, or doing my practice. But now it's like I do the spiritual quest because I feel called to do that. And I want to connect. I want to make sure that anyone who's doing this kind of work needs now to come together and stand united and to help each other. It's like the competition part was long gone for, the masculine energy for centuries
Right.
ago. So let's now allow the divine feminine to come together and just spread the love. It's more enough for everyone, and we need to shine that light out into the world. So I'm just deeply grateful for you saying yes to be part of this. Really,
Well,
really.
I'm grateful for you inviting me. It's beautiful. And I don't know if you feel like it feels like, well, because you just said you started the Spiritual Quest podcast around this time for that reason. But I feel like over the last couple of years is when everybody just seems to be coming together that's doing this work. Um, and I
What do you
love
think
that.
that is?
Like,
I want to hear it from you. I would love to hear your perspective of that.
well, I think the world is ready. Finally, we were ahead of I think not in a hierarchical way, but because we came first for some of this, right? And of this energy, we herald it in a little bit. And we didn't have the internet to connect us or whatever. So we were finding our way along the path. And maybe we weren't supposed to, I know I was never supposed to follow somebody else's. So there wasn't a lot of my teaching, which I'm sure for you was me receiving it. Early on, I studied metaphysics and for a few years in the 90s, but then from that point on, it was me receiving the information. So I think we were all kind of in our own pocket, receiving the information, helping the people that were in front of us, and then looking at the other people and saying, but I don't fit there. I don't fit there. I don't fit there. And now, luckily, we're at that point where the world is ready to make that shift and the energy is higher. And maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe we're even connecting to pass that on. Not, I don't hate to say it. I'm honored to say it. To pass it on to the next generation who's so
Yes,
ready
yes,
because
I'm
they're just,
so agreeing with you. I think that's so important. And I feel like that's been my whole life to kind of be the example, if you wish, how to be authentic, to stand in your power, to, face the fears, because we all have fears, we're, as human beings, and transcending that, and to explore and to evolve as a human being and expand as souls. And knowing that we can live from a soul perspective, I like to call it, I'm living from the soul state. I feel like I do that every time I connect fully with my four bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and the spiritual body. For me, that needs to be in alignment for the flow and that high frequency energy for me to kind of move forward. And when I
right,
manage that, because I don't do it, manage that all the time. I mean, life happens. But when I
right.
do that, wow, I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, whoa, look at your mother going now. It's like what I'm telling my children. She's like, oh my God, mom, give me a break. But I just love it. So being able to kind of show them and stand up
Right.
for that, and I see that they've learned so much. I remember, I just want to share this because I'm such a proud mother. I always wanted to hear my children, like, oh, hear them talk about me, because they never really tell me, they tell me they love me, but never really talk about, why they love me and all that. And it's okay. I mean, whenever the time is ready, it will happen. And so I did a TV show in 2019, and we had somebody made a story of us, so they came home to the house and wanted to speak to the family, and we were having an interview, and they interviewed my children. I was sitting there, and they say, so what, I can't remember exactly what the journalist asked, but he kind of asked what was, how I was as a mother. Oh wow, I started to bawl. I cried so bad. I was like, and they were like, oh mommy, because they were talking so authentically. That's the first time I heard them say and speak those words, how appreciative, and that they've seen what I've gone through and how hard it has been for me, um, doing this by myself, standing up for myself, and navigating my journey, taking ownership of it. And and it's just hearing those words, wow, I thought, well, I got it. Not in an
That's
ego way,
awesome.
but just for myself, like, yeah, you're pretty good as a mommy. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with my, the thing I've done. So yeah, I think it's important to listen,
Mhm.
tune in and listen, whether it's to your family, your kids, give them that space, and the gifts will come. The gifts will come.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, well, thank
I'm
you.
just like you. I could talk about my kids forever. Like
Yeah,
that would
I
be
mean, here we go. It's like, I never know where this is going, but I just, the children are our future, right? So,
right.
and
Right. And it's interesting to me too because, as we're talking about, oh, we're so similar and we did this apart, not knowing each other. I think that again, just when you were talking about the soul, the love I saw in your eyes felt like mine. And then when you talked about your children, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's how I feel looking at your eyes as you say that. I don't think that that's a coincidence when we're talking about, we came here. I even you knew you wanted, even though you didn't want to have kids when you were younger, just that knowing like, oh, this as much as the purpose has been to bring this information through and hold the light now, it's even more for the next generations. And I think
Yeah.
our souls recognize that. And the souls that chose to be our children knew that when they came too, which is really incredible.
Wow. Well, I could talk to you for hours, Sheila. I think I'll have to invite you back one day so we can have, more in-depth conversation because you do a lot
Yeah.
of, different things and you have such a profound perspective on many of it, which I really resonates with. And some things, you bring a new perspective as well into, topics that I find fascinating. So, yeah. But before we go, any final words for those who are listening or watching that will help them move into the next year? We're moving into a next year. So, any good tips?
Yeah. Well, let's say follow your intuition, whether that means upgrading your beliefs or tapping in more to imagination. Reach out, talk about it, get help. You're listening to us. You may be one of us who've been going through things and feeling alone. But I think the more we connect, whether that's through mentorship or friendship or just recognizing each other, and if you've been in this for a long time, it's now normal. So catch up to that and realize that the world does see this as normal. Because I think, some of us have been ahead of the time for so long. We need to take a breath and be like, oh, I can talk about this everywhere. I can just live this and be that beacon if you've been hiding before. So those are the things that come to mind now. And the final thing is it's supposed to be joyful. If it's not joyful, then recalibrate.
Yes, it's supposed to be joyful. Life is joyful and it's a choice. Remember, it's a choice.
Right.
Yes. Thank you, Sheila. I'm deeply grateful to you for sharing your gift with us and for being a pure channel of love. If you feel called to connect with Sheila, then you'll find her contact information in the episode summary, where you'll also find links to her Consciously Awesome Living show and her book Enchanted One, The Portal to Love. Did you know that you can connect with my guests live? Every month, I go live with one of my previous guests who will teach on their topic. Make sure you sign up for the Spiritual Quest newsflash to get notified and join the next Spiritual Quest livestream masterclass for free. You'll find the link in the episode description. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sending you lots of love and light from me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by spirit.